Hi everyone, it's Sarah. Firstly, let me apologise for being a teeny bit late here. The setup that I've got going on with my camera here, so I can make sure I can also see the computer, is interesting to say the least. Oh, and the light, look, you can really see my wrinkles in this light. That's not good. So if you see me looking off in this direction, it's because my computer's there, and there's some things that I really want to make sure I get right when I talk to you, because when I've written them down here, they're perfect. So this is the first time I've done anything like this. I I do have a bit of a cold, as she coughs on cue there, so I'm hoping that my voice lasts out and that I don't sneeze you to death and things like that. But let's hope so. As for how long this is going to take, I have no idea actually. It could be here for a long time, it could be here for a little time, but I want to talk to you about growth mindset and teach you a little bit about it actually. So this is going to be a long one. So if you're listening to the recording, just so you know, get yourself comfortable. Now, growth mindset to me is one of the most important things that we can do with our children. It's just so important. I can't, really talk about it enough. As a society, we're so keen, hi Catherine, to, I don't know, kind of say to children, how pretty they are, how good they are, how talented they are. We all want our children to be talented in inverted commas. And we put a lot of emphasis on that element, on the element of a child being talented. And often when our children are very young, that's how we speak to them. And it's not just parents, it's a society as a whole. And if we continue to speak to children like this, it means they're going to grow up more with a fixed mindset, which can have devastating effects on them later on. So if you just joined, Catherine, I'm going to be going for a while here talking about growth mindset. So just so you know, in case you want to stay around or go anytime, it's absolutely fine. So, there is a real problem actually with how we talk to children and how this is having them grow up. If you see me looking off, it's because I'm looking at some notes. And I think that when we're thinking about, because it's hard, actually bringing a child up with growth mindset is not an easy thing. It's actually quite tricky. And most of the parenting techniques that we're taught do not teach a child to have a growth mindset. They're very, very fixed mindset things. And I'll explain to you the difference between them both in a minute. But the benefits of a child growing up with a growth mindset are phenomenal. So, for example, they're going to try harder. They're not going to give up. They're going to see failures or setbacks as quite useful. They become more resilient, more persistent, definitely. They don't stress about being perfect as much, or if at all. They also take more responsibility for their lives and their actions. And it has been known that children with growth mindset lower their risks of depression, anxiety, and mental health disorders. Now, it's not that they don't get them, they just deal with them very, very differently. And in the society that we're growing up in at the moment, so I need some water here, it's really, really important that we do future-proof our children and make sure that they're going to be able to deal with their mental health. So I've just seen that maybe doing it here with this poster behind me was not the best idea. There you go. I have a home full of 50s items, and this is an original 50s poster, just so you know. And actually, look at that. I look like I've got some sort of halo going on there. But anyway, maybe if I sit up a bit, you won't be able to see it. So it's really, hugely important if we want to sort of future-proof our children. Now, there's two books, if you want to know more about this, that I highly recommend you get. One of them is called Mindset, Changing the Way You Think to Fulfill Your Potential. This is by Carol Dweck. She is the person who came up with growth and fixed mindsets. That is looking backwards to me, but I think it's looking okay to you. And the other one is Grit, Why Passion and Resilience Are the Secrets to Success. This is by a woman called Angela Duckworth. And what she did, actually, Angela Duckworth, some really interesting research into children that were known as geniuses. And she tracked children that were thought of as geniuses and children that were kind of normal, in inverted commas, to see if the geniuses fulfilled their potential. And what she found is that actually in both groups, the same amount of people fulfilled their potential, and that actually intellect had nothing to do with whether you were going to become successful or not, and that it was actually down to what she calls grit. And grit can only happen if you have a growth mindset. So, you know, basically it is important. That's all I'm going to say. I'm trying to think what... I want to tell you a story actually first. I just need to have a drink of my amazing chocolate milkshake here. And I think when I tell you this story, and I'm just trying to get some figures up here that are really important for it, you'll understand why growth mindset is important and the impact it can have. And every time I tell this story, everyone that listens can remember something like this from their past. And I'm sorry for the snuffling here, and can relate to it or can remember something about their child. So when I was young, I was a really, really fast runner. I'm not going to lie, like super, super fast. When I was in primary school, I had to run with the boys because I was so quick that none of the girls could beat me. I was way ahead of them. When I went up to secondary school, I was in all of the teams. So I was in the inter-school running team. I was on the hockey and rounders team, not because I could do anything to do with hockey and rounders, just because I could run. And I just won everything. You know, it was really, really simple and easy for me. And I would get told a lot that I was talented and I was a fast runner and it was in my genes and, you know, all of this kind of thing. And I just totally believed it. And then what happened in about year 8, I think it was, somebody joined school who was also a good runner. Now, my coach at the time thought this was brilliant, that I had someone to compete with. I, on the other hand, was less intrigued by this. And so we'd race. The first race, the first race I won, and then she'd won a race, and it went like this. But what happened is every time she won, instead of thinking I needed to try harder, I got a little less interested in running. So I would skip a few practices, not train as much. I would, just my motivation went. I got less and less interested in running. And consequently, of course, she got better and better because she didn't wane. And then it was the sports day. Now, the 100-metre race in sports day, because I was a short distance runner, was something that most people were normally not interested in because I used to run it by at least a couple of metres. But this year, when I was racing this new girl, Lucy, it was like the talk of the school. Who was going to win this, me or her? Because suddenly I had some competition. And I remember that race really, really well, because Lucy did not only win it, I actually come in 5th that day, much to my and everyone else's amazement. And at the time, I think I blamed everything from my shoes to the blue knickers I had to wear to my boyfriend. Even my boobs, I think, got blamed in the process. But that was the last time I ever ran a short distance in my life. It was the last time I ever entered a sporting competition. And actually, it was the last time I ever actually entered any competition ever. So I was about 13, 14 at the time. Hi, Claire. We're talking about growth mindset, and I'm sharing a story. So, so I gave up running that day. I didn't run anymore whatsoever because I thought that my talent had gone. I thought my talent had left me. I thought that it was something that I was born with, that it was fixed, that it was innate, and I couldn't change it. And suddenly it had gone and left me. But what I didn't know, and I'm just going to be looking here for some figures here. So in 1982, I could run the 100 metres in 13.9 seconds. And I was, the next Olympics coming up that I could have entered was 1988. So I would have been 19 years old in 1988. In 1983, I could run 13.4 seconds. In the 1988 Olympics, the fastest UK woman ran 11.39, and the British record at the moment is 11.02. The first race that I ever raced against Lucy, I clocked 12.9 seconds. So between 1983 and 88, is it feasible to think that would have gone down over a second? Yeah, it's very feasible. So, you know, I missed out on what could have been an Olympic dream, and that is actually what I was being preened for. I was in everything to be preened for the Olympic dream, but I just gave up because I got beat. And no one had told me that actually getting beaten didn't mean that I wasn't any good. Getting beaten didn't mean that I'd failed in life. Getting beaten just meant I meant to try harder. And that really shows you what growing up with a fixed mindset does for us. And I don't think it's like, you know, parents, coaches and teachers sort of get up every morning and think, oh, what can I do to undermine my child and limit their achievement? You know, I don't think we do that. But I think that the things that we say actually do that without us knowing. And we do this all, you know, from the goodness of our heart. You know, we do what we think is right. So there's a little story. I'm sure that some of you can really relate to that, either in your own life or in your teen's life. So let me just look at the definition of growth mindset here so you really understand what we're talking about here. So fixed mindset is what I grew up with. You know, as soon as it got difficult, I stopped. In a growth mindset, people believe that the most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. And that's from Carol Dweck in her book. So having a growth mind, if I'd have had a growth mindset, I wouldn't have given up. I'd have said, well, hang on a minute. If I put more dedication into this and more hard work, then maybe I can get better, which is certainly what my competition at the time was doing. So I've now got something in my eye to add to the cold. And the fact that the setup here is a little bit weird and looks like my it's going to fall over any time. So that's what a growth mindset is. And of course, we all want that for our children. We all want that. But, you know, we don't do it. We say things like, you're so well behaved, you're so helpful, you're so cute, you're so smart, you're so fast. That was certainly what I got. You're such a talent, certainly what I got. You learn that so quickly, you must be really smart. Or look at your drawing, you're a young Picasso. We say things like this all of the time. And not really thinking of actually the message that they might be giving to our children. If you've got any questions for me, please do put them up so I can see there's some of you watching live. Stop me in mid-flow. Don't worry about it. If you've got anything you want to say here, that would be great. I've never done anything like this before. This is a huge start. Actually, and the slides that I've got here, what I will do is I'm going to put them into PDF and upload them so you can actually see what I'm talking about. I'd love to move my computer so I can look at you head on here, but if I do that, the phone will fall from the strange position it's in because I've lost my tripod or didn't have time to find it quickly. Okay, so we understand what growth mindset is, I'm assuming. If you were here with me live, I'd be saying, I'm making sure you all put your hand up. So if you are watching, just give me any sort of sign, any sign that you understand what I'm talking about. Don't know what that might be because I can't see how the Facebook Live looks for you now because they've changed it slightly. Okay, so let's have a look at a fixed and growth mindset. And I am going to leave you telling you what we need to do to bring our children up with a growth mindset. So in a fixed mindset, a child thinks that success is the result. They get absolutely obsessed with the result. That winning or succeeding or coming first or being the smartest or whatever is the end result. And that's all they focus on. They don't focus on anything else but that end result. They think their ability is innate and fixed. And I see this a lot in the students I work with who are very, very gifted. I might have a student that's really gifted in sort of science and maths. That happens quite a lot. But English is a little bit more tricky for them. And because English is a little bit more tricky and they have to try hard at it, they think they're not skilled in it at all. They go, well, I just haven't got the ability. Because for them, maths and science is so easy to do that when something becomes a bit tricky or a bit difficult, they give up because they think, well, I'm no good at it. Because to them, they believe that you've either got ability or you haven't. And if you haven't, you should give up. And I've even heard some of them saying various things like that to me. Someone with a fixed mindset will believe something has to be flawless and that you can't make a mistake. Huge perfectionists. And actually, I'm talking about kids, but adults can be in fixed mindsets too. If they don't win, they think that they're a loser and they feel shame. And that was certainly what I felt when I was young. And I don't know, but shame is the worst experience or feeling I think we can ever feel. And no one wants to feel shame. So it's not surprising that I protected myself from never feeling that again. People with fixed mindset, their self-esteem is linked to that ability. So who am I if I can't do that ability? So who was I if I couldn't run? And actually what happened is when I gave up running, I went on a huge downward spiral, became really rebellious, started drinking and doing all kinds of dodgy things that teenagers used to do, don't anymore, because I didn't know who I was. If I can't run, if I'm not winning races, who am I? Because my self-esteem was so tied up in being so fast. So yeah, their self-esteem is linked to their ability, which is so dangerous, because when that ability doesn't show up or something happens, then they take that personally. If they fail, they tend to blame and they'll try less. So if you've got a child that's blaming everybody, and this happens a lot, well, it's the teacher's fault, it was this fault, it was that fault, they're stuck more than in a fixed mindset, because fixed mindset blames. It doesn't go, hang on a minute, that went wrong. Let me, give myself a day to get over it and then relook at it and go, okay, so what could I do next time? But no, they will blame and then they'll try less. When they get depressed or anxious, they feel very incompetent and less determined to get out of it. Like they can't see that this is temporary, or they might be able to get out of it. And this is one of the things that I know as soon as a young person walks in my room, whether they've got a fixed or growth mindset. If they have a fixed mindset, they will come in and say, I'm depressed, like they own it. It's like their label, I am it. Whereas someone with a growth mindset will say something like, you know what, I'm feeling a bit sad or a bit low or I'm a bit depressed at the moment, but it's okay because I know it will go. So even though they do get depressed and they do get anxious, they see it as temporary and they think that they will at some point be able to get themselves out of it. Someone with a fixed mindset really stuck in there, and I talk to a lot of university students at the moment, very, very bright, and this does happen a lot to bright kids, do grow up with fixed mindsets because of what's said to them. And remind me to tell you about girls. There's a difference in girls. I'm just writing myself a note so I remember here. Yeah, and because these bright university students are at uni, and suddenly their support systems have gone and they're feeling sad or anxious and they just see it as an absolute failure and it's going to be there forever and there's no way I can get out of this. Now, someone with a fixed mindset will believe they don't have to put the effort in. If they're not good at it, it's because they don't have the ability. They don't think it's anything to do with persistence or anything. They think, well, I'm no good at it, so I'll give up. I don't have the ability. And they will often judge their competition or judge their allies. They won't see them as someone they can learn from. They're in competition with them and they're going to win. So that's what growing up with a fixed mindset can create. Growth mindset, on the other hand, which is where we want to head to, they will see learning as the end result. So instead of winning the race being the end result, it's like, okay, I'm going to run this race and see what I learn from having a different takeoff strategy, for example. They believe that ability can be nurtured with effort. So they think, yeah, I might have the ability, but actually this is going to get better if I put effort in. And I remember when I think it was the Olympics one, and I was listening to an interview with someone who just run, I think it was like the 4x800 metres, a UK woman, and she'd done really badly. And they interviewed her at the end and said what went wrong, and she was like, well, I don't know, maybe it was the weather, the coach has changed my trainers, my diet, blaming absolutely everything, but not saying, you know what, I just need to work harder. And then on the same kind of day, I saw an interview with Mo Farah, and someone was saying to him, well, you're so gifted, how can anyone ever kind of get better than you? And he said, you know what, I have talent, but I work every single day to make sure that ability shows up. And the difference between those two really showed me. You know, we've got one blaming everything for not winning, fixed mindset. Mo Farah going, yeah, I've got the ability, but it's only going to show up if I do the work, which is what people with growth mindsets believe. Yeah, I have the ability and it will show up if I do the work. If they make mistakes, they see it as learning. Now, I'm not saying I don't think we're all in growth mindset forever and we're all in fixed mindset all the time. That's what I mean, because I think that everybody, you know, some of us, if we make mistakes, we do see them as learning, but, you know, sometimes we do see it as failure. So I don't think we're ever in 100% of the time. If they don't win, they're more likely to try harder and look for a strategy that they can use again. If they fail, instead of like letting this put them down, they'll resign to try harder next time. They go, okay, well, that didn't work, so I need a different strategy to make it work next time. If they get depressed, and I've talked about this before, they're more likely to take action and become determined not to quit. They're not going to give in to it as easily. They believe that effort ignites ability, whereas fixed mindset people believe that, you know, if I have to put the effort in, I don't have the ability. They believe that effort ignites ability. They believe with effort anything's possible. They see allies as people to learn from, so they don't tend to see people as competition, and they see themselves as separate from their ability. So they know if they turn up and they have a bad race that day, yeah, you know, it might feel awful and they might have some things they need to change, but they don't let that stop them. They don't kind of take it personally. They see themselves separate from that ability. And there was one thing I wanted to say about girls here, but I just need a drink. Any questions, please do ask me. Now, more girls tend to grow up with fixed mindsets. Now, I'm not saying boys don't, because they absolutely do. But what happens is when girls are young, they develop self-control quicker. So in schools, they say, oh, you know, good girl, you're sitting still, you're doing your work. They get feedback on the kind of the end result. Whereas boys tends to take them much longer to develop self-control. So anyone who knows lives will know how much my cats interfere. There is now one interfering. Boys, their self-control develops later, and they're a bit of a handful. So the teacher might say things to the boys like, you know, if you just sit still, you'll be able to learn about what happens in this story. So you've got the girls being told, good girl, you're sitting really still. The boy being told, you know, if you put the effort in, then you'll find out what happens. So you know, it happens really easy. You know, boys tend to be praised on the effort, where girls tend to be praised on the results. So it does affect girls much, much more. So what can we do about it? And I think I'm going to wrap up in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to keep this really short and sweet. But what I do have for you, which I'm also making myself a note for, is I do have some message cards around this, which I will at some point this week get into a PDF and upload for you so you can see what I mean. Because this is all to do with what we say to our children. We have to be aware of what we're saying, and is what we're saying at any point indicating a growth or a fixed mindset. And then the way that we can normally tell this is pretty easily, is are we praising the effort or the ability or the result? And we need to be praising the effort. I don't even like the word praising, but anyway, you know, not the end result, not the ability, the effort it takes. So if someone had said to me, you know what, the dedication and the amount of work you put into your training, you know, that's really incredible. That makes you a great runner. If people have said that to me rather than, oh my God, you're just so talented, said in a fake American accent, that would have made a difference. And it's tiny things. And you know what? We do it automatically. We appraise the ability or the end result automatically because that's what we're used to. Now, what I do hear a lot in schools and from parents is that we need to lower the standards, that we're setting too many high standards, and that's what's stressing young people out, and particularly girls. actually, in this book, in Mindset, Carol Dweck does some research in that and shows that when we lower standards for somebody, when we expect less from them, actually gives them a really bad message that they're not good enough, and it actually encourages a more fixed mindset. So we shouldn't lower our standards ever of a child, but what we should do is make sure we have the system in place. So if you have a child that's stressed because, you know, they're expected to get A stars, it's not about lowering that expectation. It's about, okay, so you're stressed, so the system we've got going on here, you know, isn't quite supporting you, so let's look at the system. Let's look at what else we can do. Maybe you're not taking enough time off. So it's all, you know, it's high standards but a nurturing system. And we need to constantly challenge the way our children are talking about themselves. So, you know, I can't do it. It's a good one, isn't it? They're always saying that. To, you know what, you just don't know how to do it yet. Or how can you find out how to do it? Or who do you need to ask to find out what to do? Or, oh, well, you know, I'll never beat Joe because he's so much smarter than me. Well, what's Joe doing that you're not doing? Difference. I get it a lot with kids that don't have. So, you know, I do work a lot with A and A star children, and children that aren't getting A's and A stars say things like, well, it's okay for them. They're really smart. You know, they're just getting A's and A stars. And I'll say, well, do you know how much work they do every evening when they're coming from school? Do you know what it takes to get A's and A stars? And they were like, well, no, don't they just get them? No, they come in from school and do 3 hours of work a night. They've been revising for their exams since January. They've been doing 4 hours a night since January. So, you know, I'm always challenging them. No one is naturally smart. There are some people that are definitely more intellectual than others, but a lot of them still work. So, yeah, be aware of what we're saying to our children. Praise the effort, not the ability. Have high standards, but make sure the system's in place around them. And challenge the way that our children talk. And if we can do all of these things, we start to move our child from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. I do believe that most children nowadays grow up with a fixed mindset. So you haven't done anything wrong if your child's got a fixed mindset. It's super hard to shake off the shackles of society and talk to our children a different way so they grow up with a growth mindset. But it's not too late. And it's tricky, you know, when we start changing what we're saying, it is tricky because our children are used to us possibly agreeing with them or, you know, giving them an easy way out. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what's happening. But yeah, it's just a different way of talking. So what I'm going to do is upload these notes for you, which I didn't make a note of. So I'll make a note now and give you a link. I think I've got a link to it, to the message cards. And I can't remember how many are them, but they're just a bunch of sort of cards. Well, they're not cards. They're kind of documents that say the thing that a child might be saying on the other, and then so the fixed mindset thing the child might say and the growth mindset thing you can move it to. So, God, we got through that all on time in half an hour. If there's any questions for me, because I have to go off now and do a live on another group, then please do let me know. And if you want me to do more things like this, like longer lives where I teach you something, please let me know too. Because, oh my gosh, I've got loads of stuff I could go through with you. But I've enjoyed this, actually. It's been quite fun. I will upload those two things. Obviously, the slides I upload have got a little bit more on because they were from a recent speech that I've done, but I'm not going to change them because I don't need to. And yeah, I will look forward to seeing you all next week. I won't be doing another live this week unless the mood takes me, but I will be doing one next week. So if you have any questions, please do let me know and I will answer them then. Thank you for bearing with me, those who stayed live right from the beginning. It's my most liked live video yet. Woohoo! I like that. I doubt they've changed this and I can't really see what's happening so much anymore. But any questions, certainly let me know. Any questions about this? And yeah, brilliant. I've loved doing this. I hope it's been helpful and I'll speak to you all next week. Bye.